Hello everybody and welcome back to Keeper's Corner Rescue Talk for Real. Today we have a little bit of change in scenery. I'm here at the Marion County Animal Shelter here in Mullins, South Carolina. Today we're going to be talking to Brianna Kersey. She is the shelter director here. We're going to be talking about some important needs from the community as far as animal welfare. We're also going to be doing a little bit of a tour at the end instead of a creature feature since I am off property. One thing I wanted to touch on is we are still trying to raise funds for a mobile spay and neuter clinic. We're going to be talking about today the most important needs and why it's important to spay and neuter your pets. Our goal for that fundraiser is to raise $110,000, and we're hoping to utilize that to help other rescues and other shelters that are in similar situations to us that are struggling finding ways to low-cost spay and neuter. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to our channel. We're still trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. That way we can start generating money for the rescue through our YouTube channel. Go ahead and like this video and share it with people online as well. Alright guys, I am here with Brianna Kersey. She is the shelter director here at Marion County Animal Shelter. I'm going to have her introduce herself, talk a little bit about what it means to be a shelter director and how she got started in animal welfare.
So I have been in animal welfare for 5 years now. I started at Marion County as a volunteer and worked my way up to part-time, full-time, and now I took over in January as the director. A lot of work goes into it. Being a shelter director,
You wear a lot of hats, different positions.
Yes.
Encompasses
You
all of it.
have to you're picking up slack for anything that's not getting done, whether that's fundraising, rescue coordinating, ordering, handling intakes, foster homes, whatever it is, and then you're also trying to get bigger picture stuff done. You're trying to get the grants in, you're trying to implement new programs, new protocols, you're trying to stay on top of what's the latest in veterinary medicine, what's the latest protocols as far as parvo, kennel cough, pan-luc, FIV, FELV. It's a lot of education and a lot to handle, especially in the rural South.
How many employees do you have working here?
I have, including myself, 4 employees. Only one is full-time, the other 2 are part-time.
And how many animals do you have on site?
We house about 250 animals on site at any given time.
So forgetting all of the parts of rescue or parts of shelter, going to rescue, taking care of everyone's medical needs, even feeding and cleaning 250 animals alone is a huge job. That 4 people, that's a lot of stress anyways.
Yes.
So imagining what you're able to do with 4 people is insane. And that makes your job a lot harder too, because on top of all the care of the animals, it's all of the business and networking side of the rescue as well.
Yes. Ideally, eventually, I'm hoping to find some good volunteers that are experienced in foster coordinating, fundraising, that are willing to kind of take on a volunteer role of running those programs. Mm-hmm. Because right now, it's just us 4 girls, and I handle rescue coordinating, foster coordinating, social media, fundraising, adoption events, and then the director position.
Yeah, it is a lot for sure. And that's something that, if you're not familiar with the area, we are right now in Mullins, a very rural area in South Carolina. And I think with that comes a lot of stray intakes as well in this type of area. You've mentioned before something called managed intake.
Yes.
I want you to talk about what managed intake is and what it looks like for people.
So managed intake is new within the last, I would say, 2 years. It really picked up in animal welfare. Managed intake is exactly what it sounds like. You're managing how animals are coming in. So any shelter, animal control, basically they have to be able to bring in animals. No matter what, they have to be able to bring in animals. But for the other side of the sheltering, to slow the intake for stray animals that people find, you can kind of say, hey, listen, could you hold this animal, say, until Thursday, because I have dogs leaving that day. We'll provide all the supplies. So we do a lot of that with people who do find strays. Mm-hmm. And as far as owner surrenders with managed intake, they need to reach out to us. We have them submit pictures of their animal, information about their animal. We then post the animal looking for a foster or rescue, and we will begin working with that person on getting the animal current on any vetting. If they need vaccines, spay and neuter, or current rabies.
While you're having them wait before you can take them.
Yes, and we will provide them with all the supplies they need: crates, food, bowls, leashes, collars, harnesses, whatever is needed. And they will essentially become a foster to their own animal. This has significantly helped our shelter not stop intake. It's not stopping intake. And I think that's what makes a lot of people upset, is they don't want to be told, whoa, you can't bring it in until Thursday.
Right.
They feel like it should just be an open revolving door. We're not telling anyone no. We're just saying, not right now. We need to make sure we're
prepared.
Prepared to intake your animal.
And like you said, the revolving door, if it was like that and you were taking every intake, we wouldn't have this amazing survival rate and turnout rate of these animals.
Yes.
That's what people need to understand, whereas if they were taking every single animal, which is a lot every day that people ask them to take them, there would be the other side of the issue where dogs would have to be euthanized or cats for space, and that's not something anybody wants to see. So by managing intake, we eliminate that issue of euthanizing for space.
Right, because everyone's always accounted for. There's always a kennel open. Everyone has always got a placement here, whether it means they're going to stay here for a day, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 6 months. They have a place here. And it's a vital thing that I think all shelters, if they're not doing, really need to consider doing managed intake. And you don't have to do it by the book. You can adjust it to your shelter, your needs, and that's what we've done. A lot of shelters have they'll have specific days during the week, even for stray drop-off. You can only bring them in on Tuesdays and Thursdays between the hours of 2 and 4. That's when they intake strays.
And that gives you enough time to plan as a shelter of, okay, I have this date and time that I know there's going to be animals dropped off. I need to make sure I have kennel space. I have the supplies I need. I have a plan for what's going to happen afterwards about going to rescue or adopting through the shelter. Another thing that when we talk about shelters and rescues, there is a difference.
Yes.
And I think people don't understand that there is a difference between a shelter and a rescue. Can you explain more about what is the difference between the two?
So a shelter is going to be municipality, which means they are run by the county. Some will be ran by animal control through the police department, but for the most part, you're going to have county-run shelters. That means a shelter does not get to pick and choose. They have to take whatever comes in the door. We can't say, oh, no pit bulls.
Right.
Oh, no poodles. You're taking whatever's coming in the door. Versus a rescue, which is what Kind Keepers is. They can get a 501c3, and they can either intake animals into a facility if they have one. They can intake animals into foster homes. And they can pick and choose what they can take. And the beauty of that is they are able to raise money with that 501c3, and that way they can take medical cases that shelters would not have a choice but to euthanize.
Right.
They can take a litter of puppies immediately and get them out of the shelter because they constantly have a revolving door of donations. And shelters are the same way. You can donate to a shelter. Most shelters will have a 501c3 affiliated with it like we do. But that is the biggest thing, is the difference is a shelter has to take in everything and anything no matter what.
Even if it's human aggressive dog, for instance.
Yes.
Anything that animal control
even
brings.
Violent animals, anything like that. Even a dog that you know has rabies has got to go through the shelter. Versus a rescue can say, okay, well, we're only going to be a poodle rescue.
Right.
Or we're only going to be a pit bull rescue. Or we're only going to be a German Shepherd rescue. Or we're only going to be a medical rescue. So that is definitely a big difference. And they're just able to, limit their sizes based on, do they have a facility? Are they only in foster homes? Rescues are a wonderful thing. We work with several wonderful, wonderful rescues. And I know a lot of people will get upset with not just us, but any local shelter. They feel like, oh, all they do is send them to rescue. They don't ever have them for adoption. But you have to understand, Our job as a shelter is to get them in and get them out.
Yep.
Alive. That is what our number one goal is. So as soon as they're coming off that 5-day stray hold, can you take this dog? Can you take this dog? And they're going right to rescue. Not only is that dog going to rescue, that's an open kennel. And when they go to a 501c3 rescue, they don't have to be fixed because there's a transfer of custody. That is one less dog that we have to put money into as far as spaying and neutering and holding it here for weeks and weeks and weeks waiting for an adopter. And that money can be used to help the next set of, animals in the county that need help.
And partnerships between shelters and rescues are hugely important. And I know Kindkeeper in particular, we've definitely pulled puppies from here before.
Yes.
Because being a county shelter and having to take in everything, it's harder to keep young puppies who are unvaccinated clear of parvo, more monitored, in a quieter area where we have the ability at Kindkeeper to do that. So that's why it's important, for rescues to step in and say, hey, I can help more with this that you have, and kind of work together on a way to get more dogs out of the shelter.
Yes. There's a lot of going back and forth with shelters and rescues. Like I said, even a rescue being specific, they'll reach out to you and say, listen, I can help with anyone you have that looks like a German Shepherd, or I can help any mamas and puppies you have, or I can take 3 heartworm positive dogs. So there's a lot of give and take with rescues. And rescues are what will keep a shelter from being labeled a kill shelter, a no-kill whatever it is. That's where the bulk of our numbers are going to be, because adoption-wise, you are not going to stay afloat.
Right, absolutely. And you touched on something like labeling kill shelter versus non-kill shelter. I think there is a big misconception. People are missing the part, which you said earlier, is that a shelter is required to take every single thing that walks through the door. So those numbers of euthanasia can include dogs who have been hit by a car and they need help moving on to the next life because they are suffering. So that's not just, I feel like there's a misconception that kill shelters are evil, or that people just want to put down dogs. That's not at all what is happening.
All it means to be no-kill is you are less than 10% euthanizing. So less than 10% of my total intake is euthanized. That's all it means. And you are considered a no-kill shelter. So that's a big miscommunication with the community and animal welfare, is they think no-kill means literally no-kill.
Right.
That is not what it means. If an animal is too far gone mentally, if an animal is too far gone physically, there's quite a few reasons you will have to euthanize an animal, because there's just no choice. And that is what your kill numbers are going to be. They're not going to be, just for space, just for that. No matter what, a shelter is going to euthanize. No matter what, a shelter is going to have times in a year that they have to euthanize. All it means is you are less than 10% euthanizing.
Absolutely. And I think people do need to learn the difference and understand that everyone is in a crisis right now when it comes to animal welfare. Shelters are overrun, rescues are full. I mean, I know we get probably 30 to 40 phone calls a day about people finding stray animals that they want to bring to us, surrendering their own pets, and we just have to say we don't have space. We have resources that they can contact, but I know most of our resources are full too.
Yes.
And so a huge part of that problem is spaying and neutering. So that is a topic that I definitely want to get into with you about the importance of it. I personally, maybe you have a different perception, but for me, I don't see a pro in keeping a dog intact. I understand people outside of our environment, because we're in animal welfare, so no matter what, we are on 10 all the time. Everyone's out to get us. We ain't got nothing to say to nobody. All the time, animal welfare is anxiety and slam pack back to the wall. What are you going to do? Right. So I understand that probably hinders our opinions. That if we were in this. It's a very biased opinion, but
I will say, I've read the studies. I've read through it. I've talked with lots and lots of people. I have, all different types of resources. The University of Florida, I talk with them regularly. I talk with a lot of people, and I they do say larger breeds, you should wait until they're 2. Great Dane, things like that. I think your personal animals, If you have a true purebred, that is between you and your vet. I've read the studies. I don't agree with it. I wouldn't do it if it was me. But I understand that argument. But I think right now,
it's not worth the chance.
It's not worth it. We have such a crisis here in America. I mean, Texas, California, they are euthanizing hundreds of dogs a week. I mean, thousands of dogs are being euthanized.
And these are just dogs that are puppies.
Yes,
totally adoptable animals.
This is English Bulldogs,
purebreds,
XL Bullies, Frenchies, Chihuahuas, German Shepherds, purebred Labs. These are purebred dogs being euthanized in shelters because there's not enough resources and there's not enough time.
Right.
I feel that if it could be possible, I feel that like a 5-year breeding ban would get things under control.
Just something to let us put our heads above water for a minute, because it is just absolutely insane the amount of trouble that we are all going through, and the lack of vets too that help with low cost, because you cannot do this as a shelter and rescue paying like normal vet prices.
Right.
That's a huge thing, is vet relationships. Well, now there's a shortage of vets, and that is allowing the stray population we have to keep breeding and breeding and breeding. And a lot of the times what it takes is start small, be responsible of your own animals as a pet owner. Make sure your pet is up to date. Make sure it's fixed. Try to keep it on your property if it was going to be outside.
I think no matter what, if a dog lives inside, outside, it's a working dog, no matter what, why would you ever want to take the risk of your dog getting cancer and living a short life? Why would you want to take the risk of another unaltered dog coming onto your property and attacking your dog because it's not fixed? They are much, much less likely to attack if that dog is fixed because they're not trying to dominate that dog. We had a dog, Nolan. You can see him on our Facebook page. He came in, he was attacked by a dog that was trying to get a female that was in heat, and the dog attacked him. And, you know, there's so many risks. And then, I mean, if you don't spay your females, not only are you at risk of having unwanted litters, pyromethra, the heats. I mean, who wants a dog bleeding all over their house?
Not me.
There's just too much that it's just not worth the risk.
Right.
I would say if I was going to be lenient at all, I would say if you are going to be responsible, it's the only dog in your house. If you want to wait till your dog's 2 years old and your vet's good with that, that's between you and the vet.
Right.
But I think as a mass, we have to understand that animal shelters and rescues exist because of the community. We would not exist if there was no stray dogs, no one was abusing dogs, no one was neglecting them. We wouldn't exist.
Right.
We wouldn't have to be here.
And this is the community's responsibility because it was our fault. It's our fault as a community that we let it get this out of control.
Yes.
People are not responsible enough. I tell everyone, if you are not familiar with rescue or shelter, animal welfare in general, just go down to your local shelter or rescue, ask for a tour, ask them if they're over capacity. I guarantee the answer will be yes. It's a different world, and I think people are out of touch with how bad it is, and people are not familiar with what the processes are that go on at shelters and rescues. But if you have one free day a month to go down and volunteer at a shelter or rescue, you will see the problem firsthand.
I have had a lot of volunteers, trustees. We do have trustees from SCDC that will come and work with us as part of a rehab program to get them back into society, their last few years in prison. And I have had many of them that come here and they talk about how, you know, I used to breed dogs, I used to do this. And then by the end of their time here, they're like, I will never do that again. I can't believe this. The things that you will see in animal welfare,
it changes you, for sure.
It changes you. It makes you very emotional, very out of it. You're very disassociated from humans because you know what people are capable of.
Right. And that's the biggest thing, is people never fail to disappoint me, unfortunately, when it comes to animals and how they're cared for. But like you said, when the trustees come in and they see this and they were used to breeding dogs maybe when they were younger or have friends that do, that's one more person that's now educated and can say to their group of people, like, hey, this is what I've seen. I don't agree with it. And that's just one more person talking about it. So if you want to go and even just, like I said, ask for a tour, follow Facebook groups, and just get involved that way. Education is where everything starts. Even if you're just educating yourself, that's a step in the right direction for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I do want to talk about heartworms because this is what is sitting right here. I don't know if you can see it from all the way over there, but I want you to talk about what this is and what is in it in this jar.
So, unfortunately, this is a real dog heart. The dog lost its life due to a severe infestation of heartworms. It is an epidemic here in the South. Over 90%, I'll say over 80% of the dogs we intake to the shelter have heartworms.
Mm-hmm. It's almost at this point surprised if they don't.
Yes. If they don't have heartworms, we're jumping and giggly because that's amazing. Mm-hmm. Heartworms are from mosquitoes. So even if you think, oh no, I don't have a lot of mosquitoes, it takes one mosquito. That's all it takes. So they will bite your dog and travel through the bloodstream, whatever they put in your dog, mm-hmm. and now your dog has heartworms. Heartworms will kill a dog, and it is a very slow and painful death. Mm-hmm. And it's completely preventable by putting your dog on heartworm prevention. There's several different options. You do have to get it from a vet. It's a once-a-month pill. I believe they have 1-year shots you can get too. You can get 1-year shots. But I highly, highly recommend American Heartworm Society. Their website will tell you all about it. And if you don't know what it is, you've never heard of it, if you live in an area with a lot of mosquitoes, even without mosquitoes, and your dog's not on heartworm prevention.
Well, I hear all the time people say, oh, my dog's an indoor dog, so I don't need to be on heartworm prevention. But I mean, if you walk outside, you're going to the grocery store, you get bit by a mosquito. It just takes the dog going outside to go to the bathroom to get bit once, and now that dog has heartworms. And once that dog has heartworms, it is an expensive process to get them treated, hard recovery, and then a lot of the times dogs have recurring symptoms from the heartworms. Yes. It does leave permanent damage if it goes on too long. Yes.
Unfortunately, we have a few dogs that we have treated for heartworms that had a bit of a hard time after the treatment. It caused inflammation in their lungs, and enlarged heart. I've had a dog that was surrendered here that she had heartworms. She was treated for the heartworms, and unfortunately, she had heartworms for so long. There was so much damage to her heart. She had to be constantly on a fluid pill. So the dog would swell up, huge, like a watermelon, filling with fluids because her heart couldn't take it.
Right.
You have no way of knowing if your dog has heartworms unless you take it to get a blood test. That is the only way. They do not come out and poop. They will not come out of their ears, their nose, their eyes. No. It is get a blood test. If it's positive, it's positive. If it's negative, it's negative.
Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is, which I touched on briefly, is for Kind Keeper, we're starting a fundraiser where we want to raise the funds to obtain a mobile spay and neuter clinic. So that is a big project and a big fundraiser, but I cannot emphasize enough how much it is needed. Working in animal rescue, we just talked about the importance of spay and neuter in general, but a huge part of that is the low-cost aspect of spay and neutering, because shelters and rescues would not be able to do what we do without low-cost options, because we have a high volume of animals that need to be altered. I want you to talk about right now the issues people have with obtaining low-cost spay and neuter, and maybe any resources you have for people.
So even when I started just 5 years ago, there was, I believe, the only known low-cost clinics in this area would be Snips in Florence, which is still about 45 minutes from Marion County. Yeah. And then I believe there's a Love Clinic in Loris, and that was the only two I had ever heard of. And this was 5 years ago, and spay and neuter was almost unheard of. Even here at the shelter, when I started volunteering, it would be like none of the animals would be fixed. And then they would, I want to adopt this dog. Okay, well, the next spay or neuter appointment is 3 weeks out.
Right, because that's a law. In South Carolina, if an animal is going to be released from your custody, it has to be altered if it is old enough, or be on contract that it has an appointment in the books, which people need to understand as well.
Yes. So back 5 years ago, there was very limited resources for shelters and people. Now, as of 5 years later, we have Fix a Friend in Winnebago, North Carolina, which unfortunately did flood. And they were working on rebuilding, and they are working on raising money to rebuild and build a bigger facility. So unfortunately, they are out of the question. I believe that's who you guys use.
That is who we use, and obviously we have to put a pause on that for right now, which again is why this mobile clinic is going to be so important. And Fix-A-Friend did so many people's low
I
costs.
believe I read they cover a total of 40 shelters and rescues.
Right.
Is
And
their
that's-
total client base, and that's not including people. That's
Right, the
just
public,
shelters
too.
and rescues. They cover 40 shelters and rescues they have contracts with.
So losing that facility in this recent storm,
It's detrimental.
I like it. There's like it's almost overwhelming
Mhm.
how much that's going to put a setback on everybody. So, like I said, with this mobile clinic that we want to obtain, it isn't just for Kind Keeper. We want to be able to bring it to other people who are partners with the clinic and be able to help them out because they don't have any options right now. The general public, we need to keep these stray numbers under control because right now, without Fix-A-Friend, there's little to no option for people. And if this problem escalates as bad as it has without the clinic, it's going to be, I don't even know how uncontrollable it's going to get within the next couple of months before it can reopen.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a mess. Us personally, we only send our feral cats to Fix-A-Friend.
Mm-hmm.
So I have not necessarily felt the heat from that, but I know just about all of my rescue partners and shelter friends are definitely feeling
Mm-hmm.
Fix-A-Friend. However, there's still Lucky Dog in Florence offers low cost spay and neuter.
Mm-hmm.
There's also I believe it's out of Fayetteville and Lumberton. All you gotta do is type it in on Facebook. It's is it low cost spay and neuter of the Sandhills, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And this is for the general public. So,
yes,
yeah.
This is general public.
Because a lot of the times I'll hear people say like, oh, I would fix my animal, but I can't afford the surgery. Well, there is other options because a spay and neuter surgery through a private vet can be costly. But there is options. Low cost clinics, they can do spay and neuter. They can also do low cost vaccines, microchipping, things that are going to be necessary for animal to live its best life and prevent issues that we have in rescues and shelters.
Yeah, so this is the Spay and Neuter Veterinary Clinic of the Sandhills. And I know they have one in Cumberland County, and I believe they come to Lumberton too. If you type them in on Facebook,
Right.
But they offer low-cost spay and neuter. You've got Lucky Dog in Florence who offers low-cost spay and neuter. I believe there is a place in Georgetown that offers low-cost spay and neuter.
Yeah.
So there is definitely a lot more places than there used to be.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be nowhere. And I have to say, in defense of the community, I think that is why
Part of the problem.
this area has gotten so bad because they didn't have any options.
Right.
We have to kind of play into that as well, that it's not just on the community. There's a major lack of resources and education in this area for low-cost spay and neuter, low-cost rabies, low-cost microchipping, low-cost vaccines.
And education of animal welfare as
Yes.
a whole. And, like, what you have to be responsible for. I know you've seen some pretty tough cases walk through your door, being a county shelter and having animal control bring things in. I want to touch on something that might be a little bit sensitive for people, but this concept of dogfighting, I think people don't realize how close to home it really is and that it does go on. Can you touch a little bit about that and that it is prevalent in this area?
It's huge in this area. It is huge because there has never really been any control of it. If you look it up, you're not going to really see any raids of dogfighting coming from this general area. I mean, within 100 miles of this area, they're not doing it here. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing is to be aware, and if you see something, say something. Right. The saddest thing to realize, and I don't think people realize it, people think that an animal will die, if it's hit by a car or if it's seriously injured, animals will die. People don't understand that that is not always the case. Mm-hmm. And animals can survive extreme abuse and neglect. And they will survive.
But they'll suffer
and they will suffer a very slow death. I had a dogfighting dog brought in. Person claimed they found it Saturday night while riding a four-wheeler. took it home, put it in a pen, and gave it amoxicillin. This was Saturday night. He had brought her to me on Wednesday. We opened the truck door, and she was wrapped in a tarp, and she smelt like death.
Mm-hmm.
Picked her head up and looked at me. She had pus. The pus was so much in her body, it was coming out of the corners of her eyes. She was so infected. She was hot to touch, and I mean hot that you pull your hand back. You could tell this dog's temperature was through the roof. The biggest thing was her front right arm, the bone was hanging out of it. And this dog survived from Saturday all the way until Wednesday.
In that condition.
In a pen out back of someone's house.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's so important to understand prolonged suffering. And if you see something, say something. Even if you're wrong. Even
Right.
if you are wrong. Even if you don't know what you've seen is what you've seen. Or you don't know if the situation is weird. Just report it.
Right. You don't even have to contact that person.
Right.
Just
That is
call-
out of your
yeah.
hands. As
Just
soon as you
call
report it.
your animal control officer, your county shelter, give them a report, say, hey, this is what I saw. I don't feel right about it. Let them handle it, and you've done your job just by reporting it.
So big things we see here, they're going to have yard dog collars. It's going to be a really, really thick collar or a really thick chain. That's a yard dog. Anything that is multiple dogs, and they're going to be chained up
Separate.
just far enough apart that they can't reach each other, and they're going to have dirt circles around them in a doghouse.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is treadmills. They'll use these to run the dogs on.
Mm-hmm.
Another big thing to listen when you're out and about, you think something weird's going on, whatever the case may be. If you ever hear this type of situation, a lot of times they will stop feeding the dogs prior to a fight to bulk them up weeks and weeks before. So they'll stop feeding them for, say, a week, and then they'll do 6 weeks of hardcore diet. It'll be hardcore, the best food they can buy, vitamins, steak, chicken. They are beefing these dogs up.
Yeah.
Treadmills are a huge thing, a huge red flag. Pits are also a huge thing, and what you're going to see, it can be anything from a cardboard box to a makeshift wood one to carpeting, and what they're going to do is they're going to build a box, and this is where the dogs are going to fight. So when you see things like this, you see them leaning up against houses, at abandoned houses, most of the time there is going to be blood on the inside of them, and that indicates it is most likely a dog fighting pit.
I think also that once, let's say, a raid does happen and you receive dogs from dog fighting situation, it's not always a negative outcome with these dogs. Some of these dogs can be fully rehabilitated, even dog friendly, kid friendly, everything. It just takes time, and they can do it though. It is possible. Yes,
absolutely. A lot of times it is not always a negative outcome. And that goes for any shelter that you're seeing, any humane society that, you'll see one in Virginia that just did a big raid and stuff like that. It doesn't mean, they're all going to get euthanized.
Right.
The ones that get euthanized are going to be the ones that are not going to come out of it, whether it's injury-wise or mentally. Some dogs, they're too damaged, but majority of the time they're able to be rehabilitated. And even if they don't like other dogs,
they're still
homes as long as they can behave to a certain extent. So like at our shelter, we have dogs here that don't like other dogs, but these are dogs that do not fence fight. We can walk them with another dog walking on the other side of the road, and they're not charging at that dog. They just don't want a dog right there in their face. So a lot of these dogs will be like that, where they're not, they just don't want dogs around them. Another really important thing, because I see it all the time, people think any dog that has some scars on it is a bait dog. And
all the time, I feel like people pick up a dog and they assume right away.
And they're really, so truthfully, I hate to run over the parade. There's really no such thing as a bait dog. A true bait dog is going to have no or filed down teeth. They are going to have no ears, and their nails are going to be cut so short because they don't want them to injure the fighting dogs. And they don't really use dogs for baiting. They use puppies and kittens. That's why they tell you not to give away puppies and kittens for free, because dog fighters will come and take them, and that is what will be thrown into the pit to make the dogs fight. So bait bait dogs, and I'm not going to say it's not true.
Right.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that there's never been a bait dog. They've never used a bait dog or anything
And
like that.
there's definitely situations where a dog is involved in a fighting ring and it's lost or something. That dog becomes no longer valuable, and they
Yes.
might dump the dog, and
Yes.
that could be a situation. But
Yes.
that is definitely something like the whole bait idea. It's different than
It's different than what people assume it is.
no better than what
Yes.
people assume, but
Yes.
it is a little bit different.
It's really important, and it's just really important to understand is shelters and rescues are not going to label animals.
Mhm.
It's not fair to say this is a bait dog because they're not bait dogs.
And what you said about labels, as soon as you start labeling dogs in shelters and rescues, it can be really dangerous for that dog to find a home.
Absolutely.
Especially with the amount of pits that we see in shelters and rescue, people already have this misconception about them. We don't want to further that narrative because they are such amazing dogs, and we don't want people to continue this idea of them being some evil, bloodthirsty breed that can't be controlled.
Absolutely. I think it is a huge, huge misconception about pit bulls. I've been doing this 5 years. I see a little over 2,000 animals a year, and that's not including any of the rescue work I do.
Right.
Working with rescues, I probably see more like 3,000 a year between my personal volunteer stuff I do outside of the shelter with local rescues and rescues out of state. But I see on average 2,000 to 3,000 animals a year, many being pit bulls. My own personal dog, I have an 80-pound red nose. He's the light of my life, and I
Could
love
not be a
him.
sweeter dog.
I love Moolah more than anything. And my favorite thing about Moolah's story is Moolah was brought in here at 10 weeks old. I immediately fell in love with him. Immediately, as soon as I held him, I said, "This is my dog."
He followed her everywhere. I remember him being this big, and you would go out to like the cat house or something, and he'd follow.
He would
her
follow me
on
everywhere, and
feet.
I love this dog. And he had come in, and I had touched base the next day with my animal control officer, and I said, "What's going on?" And he explained to me it was a cruelty case and an abuse case, and that Moolah had been abused by his previous owner. He was caught abusing the animal. And I said, okay. I said, well, let's go ahead and do the court case. And as this whole thing unraveled, this was 2 years ago, as this whole thing unraveled, come to find out, this is a fact, Moolah was bred off of a grand champion fighting dog.
Wow.
So Moolah's genes are fighting genes. I would not, the dog doesn't have a mean bone in his body.
No.
And
you have a daughter who he
I
is
have a
obsessed
5-year-old that is his baby.
with. Mhm.
I have 2 ferrets that are his whole world. He loves the ferrets. His best friend is a one-eyed cat.
Mhm.
He has never been in a fight with another dog. He has never had behavior that has made me kind of,
Look
what
at
are
him
you
funny,
doing? Truly, a lot of it is how you raise a pit bull.
Absolutely.
It really, really is. I've had Moolah since he was 10 weeks old. And when I first got him, it was rough. You could tell the dog had been through some things,
Right.
even being that young. But that dog, I mean, he literally has it in him. I
Right.
mean, it is literally in his genetics. That was what his breed, that is how he was bred, and that's what the intention with him was to raise him to be a fighting dog. And Moolah's got all he can do to defend himself from a fly.
Yeah, exactly.
So I
And
think
raising them is, like you said, it's really important. Like, obviously these dogs are amazing dogs, but I think obviously they're powerful animals. So
absolutely.
you do.
I think under any circumstance, you should be cautious with any animal.
Mhm.
I am cautious with my dog, even though I raised him since he was 10 weeks old.
You just always have to be aware. Of
Yes,
the situation
yes,
and
I am
surroundings.
constantly watching body language.
Mhm.
I'm watching for him to be uncomfortable. I'm very strict on the crate thing. My dog is the crate is my dog's safe space. My daughter knows you do not go in that crate. You do not touch that crate. That is Moolah's safe space. If he is in the crate, he wants to be left alone.
And you're your dog's advocate. You have
Yes.
to remember that. Your dog can't tell a stranger, hey, you're on top of me, I need some space. You need to advocate for your dog, where if you're watching his body language, he looks scared, uncomfortable, ask someone politely, say, hey, the dog needs a little bit of space, remove them from a situation that you can tell is going to be bad. Just be aware and be responsible of your animal, because they're relying on you to protect them and
Yes.
prevent any bad situations from happening.
Yes. Yes, I think it's very, very important to be, vigilant about your dog, know your dog's behavior, what makes your dog uncomfortable. And I think majority of dog bites could be avoided if people educated themselves around dogs.
Right. And just understanding something as simple as body language.
Yes.
Like, as soon as you spend time around dogs and someone points something out to you, you will clock it immediately.
I know this for a fact because, like I said, I've been doing this 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
We see about 2,000 animals a year here. And if dogs were that unpredictable and that dangerous, we would be bit all the time.
Right. You're right.
We might, at most, I'm going to say between me and the 3 other girls, we might, out of 2,000 animals, have 10 bites a year. And that's between cats and dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even talking full-blown rip your arm off bites. I'm talking just bite, let go.
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes those situations happen by people fault too.
Yes,
like
a lot of the times it is our fault. A lot of times it'll be situations where like we're really busy and we're like trying to get the dog just into a kennel to be safe until we can deal with it, and the dog will nip us because we're pushing that dog too far. It's in an unfamiliar place, doesn't know what's going on, who these people are. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, when we are bit in animal welfare, it's our fault.
Right. Yeah. I have seen very, very few dogs that are just outwardly aggressive for no reason.
So I mean, I'm going to say at most every year, I'm going to say at most, we will have 5 dogs that are not rehabable, not rehomable. Their behavior is too irate. It's erratic. I mean, there's
unsafe for you guys.
Yes, and I'm talking, these are dogs that you can't even walk in the kennel with them. These are true feral dogs. Unfortunately, I did have a few months ago, I had one that she was a feral dog. She bit 3 people and we decided, and she had been here 6 weeks. We gave her 6 weeks, calm down. She was getting walked every day. We had a trainer coming in here. We had a behavioral trainer coming in here. She bit him, bit a volunteer, and then bit one of my trustees.
Mm-hmm. And that's a dog who's also not happy mentally at that point.
Yes, and you know that this dog needs an insane amount of rehab. Mm-hmm. This dog needs one-on-one time. It needs a quiet space. And you cannot provide that, and making that dog live in a kennel for the next year
because the dog
is not fair.
It can't even be adopted safely into the public, so let alone...
It can't even go to a rescue. Rescues cannot take on that liability. No. Rescues have insurance, so a rescue cannot take a dog with a bite history, a dog that even if I don't know, he might bite someone. Right. No, we can't take it. Can't do it.
You can't properly take care of an animal that you are not safe around.
And I think the biggest thing to remember is it's not fair for the other animals in your care.
Absolutely.
Because now on average, we keep about 120 dogs here. That's 120 dogs split up between about 4 people do the cleaning. Mm-hmm. And that's 100 something dogs that all need medications, they all need walks, they all need enrichment, they all need, and not to mention that dog, it's irate behavior and jumping up and down in the kennels, crawling up the fence, pulling on the fence, chewing all their stuff. Every time we have to get the dog out of the kennel, it's a big ordeal. It's very stressful for the other dogs because
it's going to work all of them up.
Yes, they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand what we're doing, and they don't understand why this dog is so upset with us because we're their people. It's such a dangerous situation, and they're not animals that should be put back into society. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I'm going to say at the absolute most, we've had 5 in a year. Like that's my absolute
and you
most.
And you see thousands.
Yes.
So that is such a
and that is on a high end. That's not every single year.
Right.
I'll say the most I've ever seen in a year is probably 5 dogs that were truly like, oh no, that dog, something's wrong there.
For our last topic here, I just want you to mention anything that you need from the community. What kind of support are you looking for? Just anything that you want to get out there for Marion County Animal Shelter.
So we are, as I kind of touched base with earlier, we're definitely looking coming into this new year. We're looking for people that want important volunteer roles. So someone that we're looking for a foster coordinator, volunteer coordinator. We're looking for someone who would do a youth outreach program coordinator. And this doesn't mean it's going to be a full-time job or anything like that. I mean, and the foster coordinator, we could have 2 or 3 of those. We could have 2 or 3 volunteer coordinators.
And take some weight off of you doing
yes,
everything.
But we're definitely looking for some big roles. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to say the most important thing, whether you decide to support us, you just support Kind Keepers, you support any of the shelters anywhere in this area, is supplies. Anytime you get a chance, if you've got, hey, I'm going to grab back dog food, that's appreciated. That's going to help.
Hugely. I don't think people realize, like, oh, well, I can only afford to get one thing of cat wet food. Like, that feeds, like, for us, I mean, that whole case of wet food feeds our cats for 2 days, the whole thing. So that is huge for us.
Yes, we feed about 300 pounds of food a day here. That's wet and dry food, cats and dogs. It's about 300 to 400 pounds depending on how many are here. So that is every single day. What is that? 7 times 300?
Yeah.
I mean,
20. Don't make me do math.
That's gotta be what? I mean, that's a lot of food. Let me see here. We're doing 300. We're gonna put it at 300 on a low end. 7 days a week. That's 2,100 pounds of food we feed in 1 week here at our shelter. Yeah. So your 150-pound bag of food, it does help.
Huge difference.
And I think that's really important. And it doesn't always have to be brand new things. Even if you've got a bag of sheets and towels, if you've got an old cat tree that's still in good condition, carriers you don't need, leashes, collars.
Office supplies, anything you have around your house. Like, I know that for us, we don't have central air in our offices, so we had some AC window units donated, and that was huge. It's like stuff for the employees as well. It's all about the donations.
Yes.
So, like, we really, like you said, we could not run and do the things we do without support from the community, so that is huge. All right, Bree. Well, I just want to thank you for joining us and taking some time to sit down and talk about what it's like working in animal welfare. I want to give you the opportunity to talk about where people can find out more information about Marion County Shelter as well.
So our Facebook is Marion County SC, capital letters, Animal Shelter. And our profile picture is a black and white pitty right now. You can find us on there, and that's definitely where we're the most active because, again, I'm the only one who does social media, so it's really, really hard for me to keep up. We do have Instagram and TikTok, but we're not really that active on there. And then we also have a website called sosmarionsc.com. And that's linked on our Facebook page, too, if you can't find that. And everything's on there. We've got a lot of resources on there, even for if you're not from Marion County. We try to share a lot of resources and events going on that might help you even if you're in Horry County. So it's definitely a good Facebook page to follow.
Yeah. And everyone tries to help each other, rescue shelters, the public. We're all in this together, so it's important that we all stick together and help each other. And that about does it for this episode. So I'm going to walk around and do a quick video of the facility that you guys have. I know we're in the process of building a new... Is that going to be indoor-outdoor when I do the tour?
Yes, so that's going to be indoor-outdoor. They actually come Thursday to put the building up.
Awesome.
It's going to be indoor-outdoor runs, so the dogs can go inside, outside, all that good stuff, flush system, all that good stuff's going to be in that building.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Bree.
Yeah, thank you for having me.